And it's code in the D to give the keyboard a punch. Then cross, correlate, and a break for some lunch. Correlate, tabulate, process, and screen. Program, print out, regress to the mean. And it's, oh boys, can't you code it? And program it right. Nothing ever happens in this.
In this short video, I'm going to introduce you to a style of programming that starts from interactive use of the command window to putting all of your commands into a program file that you can save and replay or rerun later, and then to a more advanced style of more structured programming where you can have a master program or a main program and then sub-programs. The advantage of this is that as your programs become more complicated, you can break your tasks into smaller discrete units that are easy to follow and understand, and it provides a complete statistical audit trail for all the work that you've done. And when you start getting into your own work, you're going to find that your projects become very complicated very quickly, and this style of programming should be helpful to you. I've got Stata up and running, and I'm going to go to the command window and start entering some of my commands interactively and see what errors I get and what problems I have. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my directory to a directory that I've already created where I'm going to keep all the files for a particular project. I've labeled this one or named this one second year paper, something you might end up doing. It could be dissertation or research project 1 or whatever name you want. I forgot to add the CD, so I have an error. The command is actually change directory, and that looks like that worked. So now I have two commands in my command window. One of them is wrong and one of them is right. Obviously, I'm not going to keep the one that's incorrect. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load my data set. I'm going to use the Stata Auto data set. With the clear option. And that seemed to work just fine. Over my variables window, I've got all my variables and so forth. I'm now going to run some commands that will show me what the data look like. I can describe. I can summarize. And I can run the codebook command. So all told, that looks pretty good, and now I want to save this into a file or a program because I might want to run this later. So what I'm going to do is highlight these four commands. I can hold down the control key and click on them individually, or use the shift key and highlight a range of commands. I'm going to copy them by right-clicking and copy. And now I'm going to open up a do file editor, a do file window in my editor, and I'm going to paste those commands into my file. So far, so good. I'm going to test my file, my program, and I have several ways of running this. First, I can just click on this button up here, which is to execute this particular do file. When I do that, the program runs, there are no errors. So now I'm in this kind of error checking mode. I can also walk through my program one line at a time. I can do this by clicking on this first line, I'll click on the 1, and then coming over here and clicking on this button, which is the execute selection button, and it will only execute the highlighted line. I could highlight 2 lines. I'll click on the 2 and drag to the 3 and click do. And like that, I can just step through this program one line at a time and seeing what the outcome of every line is. I should save my file. You can see I've got some other programs in here, and I'm going to call this file auto-explore.do. You can see that it's been saved right here, and it's a text file. I could open this up in WordPad or Notepad. I like an editor called KEdit. Whatever text editor you have, this file can be edited in that editor as well. I'm not quite done yet. I need to go back and get this command, the change directory command. And add that. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to turn my log on because I want to make a record of this. So I'm going to say log using I've turned my log on at the top. I'm going to save it as a text file, not in a Stata formatted version of the file, and then I'm going to close my log at the bottom. Before I save this file, I want to execute it. I'm going to execute all the lines and see that it works. Looks pretty good, and I'm just going to double check over here that the text file was created. I'm going to double click on it, which should start up my default text editor, which is Kedit. And there's the results of this particular program. So coming back here, I think everything's working well. I'll click on the save button and I'm done. Now when I come back in another day or so to work on this project, I can start with this particular file. I can execute this file in a couple of different ways. I've already shown you how to execute it out of the editor window, but I can also execute it from the command line by typing do auto explore. And it runs the program again. That works just fine as long as it's in my default directory. I could specify a path name as well if it was someplace else, but I recommend in Stata keeping all of your files in one directory and just changing to that directory. Now, we'll start creating a set of do files. And pretty soon they're going to be large. So let's look at another do file. I've already created these. And let's go to a recode do file. So this would be another thing you might do in your programming. Here I'm going to subset my data by keeping only the domestic automobiles, those coded 1 on the variable foreign. I'm going to use the price variable to divide my sample of domestic cars into quartiles. And then I'm going to add a new variable label, and then I'm going to do a tab of the variable, a frequency distribution of the variable. I think this will work. I've already created this file and have run it before, so I'm just going to click the execute button, and it seems to work just fine. The only thing missing from this program is, again, saving a text file of a log. So I'll just go ahead and enter that. I like to name my log files the same name as the file that's executing them. And we'll try running this program. Seems good. It's creating the log and save. And then finally, I have another program out here to do a regression analysis. Now this program has, it's not really more complicated, but anytime you see a command in here that I'm using that you don't understand, remember to go to the help file. So you should go to help levels of, and you can see how I'm using this particular Stata command. It's going to this variable called price Q, which is our quartile variable, and it's going to extract the individual or unique values from that variable, which happen to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the values we created in the recode in the other program. And then my regression is going to step through and run a different regression for each set of data. We're going to regress the weight of the automobile and the miles per gallon, but we're going to break that down by cars in the first quartile by price, the second quartile by price, third quartile, and fourth quartile. Let's go ahead and see if this works. Seemed to do okay. And again, I should probably log this. If you haven't figured out this log command, the option text makes this a text file, not a Stata formatted SMCL file, and the replace command writes over an existing file if there is one. We'll run that one more time. That seems to run, and save it, and done. Now, when I come over here and look at these files, you can see the number of files in my folder are beginning to grow. So it's becoming more complex. What was the order of execution of these files? how do I keep this all straight? What we'll do is we'll create a master file, and in that, or a main program file, and in that file we'll put in a command to run each of these other do files. So back in my Stata editor, I'll open up a new Stata program, and I will type in the command do That's really all I need. So I'll go ahead and run that and just see that it works. I don't have any errors. Everything seems to be good. This file is now the beginning of my statistical forensic audit file. Everything that I think is done and ready and good about this particular programming project ends up in this file. If I'm experimenting with another program, an analysis program or something else, and I don't think I'm done firming it up and making it work exactly right, it doesn't go into this file. This file summarizes all the things that are done and I believe to be correct for my project. Now it's missing a few things. Comments, for example, and you can comment in line. And we should probably put something at the top, a comment about the purpose of the program. Is it for a course, my dissertation, or whatever? And what I like to do is I'm going to go back here and look at my directory. I'm having trouble finding. There we go. And I'm going to come into this upper window, and it's highlighted. I can right click. And I'm going to add that command right here at the top to change to directory. So I know that that gets done. Now I'm going to save this file. And I can come back another day and pick up exactly where I left off. One last little detail here. In my Explore program, I changed directories. I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to get rid of that so I don't have multiple references to changing directories. This way, if I decide to move this to a different computer, I only need to go into my main program file and change this particular line. So let me exit out of Stata here. And let's start from scratch. I execute Stata. I'm going to change directories. And now I can do and I'm back to the data set that has the subset of domestic cars with the new quartile variable, and I've replicated everything with the regression up to the point where I was in the session before. Programming styles vary by person. I like to give you my tips of what works for me in my workflow process. It's something I've come about through years of using different statistical applications, and it works for me. Sometimes you may say, well, it's ridiculous how much I go through with commenting and how I indent. That's okay. You don't have to follow that style. But remember, sooner or later, this will bite you if you don't establish some kind of style to make your programs easy to read and easy to execute and know what you've done. So that's our video for today. If you have any questions, please call or email me and I'll do my best to answer them.
Then it's code in the D to give the keyboard a punch. Then cross, correlate, and a break for some lunch. Correlate, tabulate, process, and screen. Program, print out, regress to the mean. And it's, oh boys, can't you code it? Program it right. Nothing ever happened.